Excellent. I hope everybody's been well. Anybody have any questions about anything before we start? It is on word. Another week under the Saturn sun. You right. What is fiduciary responsibility in terms of what? You mean in general or just in regular speaking? Thank you. Excellent. Thank you. Tell them I said thanks for doing the knowledge and for supporting. In terms of fiduciary responsibility, in terms of private corporations owning people, they are exactly what they are. Just corporatized people who haven't established any outside inference in terms of them doing that. So those represent people who are mostly financially dependent on corporations, things like that, to subsist, not necessarily people who have their own modes and means of procuring, their type of financial independence. So that's why the government likes to control people with welfare, with money, with this fake student loan forgiveness package, which their Supreme Court has already struck down like 3 or 4 times. Yet, because this government is lawless, or this present administration is lawless, like most of them, but they want to be able to do that. They want to be able to make people dependent upon them. And because they know that they're going to get voted out, they want to bring a whole nother group of people in here who are dependent on them to be able to control and hopefully give them rights to vote, which again would be illegal. Not to mention about 25% of the current regime that's actually working in the present government is not even sworn in. So they're not even really supposed to be holding office. So the fact that they talking all of this crap about trying to get them out and do this and that, but then you letting people who haven't sworn an oath of office in there. This is why they could be waving Ukraine flags and all of these other nation flags and sending all of your money, well, not your money, but the people's money to all of these different places and all of these different causes that have nothing to do with the actual so-called people. Let you know that they're dealing with a whole different type of on some different type of time, as they say. You know what I mean? So that again is the issue. And basically, because everything that this government has ever told us about anything has been a lie, we have to also take into account that the only people that's coming or who can change the whole outcome of this is us. So because we were raised to hate the place we were born at, we were raised to believe that we're not from the place that, again, we're born at. They have convinced the whole segment of our populace, meaning our meaning so-called original people's populace, that, it's better to have somebody else come in here and do something and do whatever they want. When all of these people they're bringing over here are basically foreign enemy combatants and hope to usurp and take everything that we have, because their countries are shitholes. Because if they weren't, they would stay there and build up their own country. However, they don't want to do that because their countries are only maybe 100, not even 100, maybe the oldest so-called African country, You know what I'm saying? If we really want to get into the brass tacks of it, it's not even maybe 80 years old. Maybe. You got to remember, most of these countries didn't exist until the 1960s, which happened to be around the same time, between the 50s and the 60s, which happened to be around the same time that they were working the civil rights grift over here. So most of these people don't know how to run a country and things like that without being on the puppet strings of somebody else. You know what I'm saying? So that's really the issue with that. You know what I mean? So technically, the oldest country in America is what they would call Ethiopia. But the problem with that is that Ethiopia, that is the Greek name. Because believe it or not, a lot of Ethiopians are what they refer to as Greek Orthodox. So they speak in the old Byzantium Greek term when their ancient people was speaking Aramaic, which was the same language as Yeshua. So remember, Yeshua was not a Christian, just like Buddha was not a Buddhist, just like Muhammad was not a Muslim, just like Krishna was not a Hindu. You understand? These are all modern concepts and things that came into about after the religious or the religified aspect of things came into existence. And again, everybody's supposed to have their own religion or their own way of worship. That's not really the issue. The issue is when you create a religious aspect to do that. You know what I'm saying? So that's really the main problem with all of that. You know what I mean? Yeah, so that's very true. IEB, there is no money but gold and silver. Everything else is secondary. Brother Jawad asked, can you build on that? Excuse me. Yeah, so most of the Baal rituals starting after that. Also, Yeshua was Hebrew in terms of that was his religion, but his people in them spoke Aramaic. You know what I mean? Which again is, or technically is what the Ethiopians are speaking. But the Ethiopians, big up to them, a lot of them is actually Greek Orthodox, which is, which is a whole nother conundrum. You know what I mean? But that's neither here nor there for us. However, because we have our own prophet, we have our own dialects, we have our own culture, and regardless to what foreigners like Kaiser and these people want to try to say, is like they come over here and emulate us all over the world, how we dress, how we talk, what we sing about, what we rap about, all of that. And then they turn around and say, well, yeah, but African, so-called American blacks don't have no culture. That's because all y'all niggas come over here and try to adopt it and try to do it better. But let me tell you, Afro beats ain't never going to be better than hip hop. You know what I'm saying? Afro beats ain't never going to be better than true dance hall rockers and all of that. You understand? Afro beats or whatever foreign music y'all want to bring over here, that's never going to be better than house or any of the jazz or any of the original music that we created as original indigenous people. You know what I mean? And nobody can top that. We're the only people that still create stuff out of nowhere. We could start wearing a scarf in a certain way, and then one of these devils come and take a picture of it, and the next thing you know, it's on the runway in Paris. You understand what I'm saying? But these are the same people trying to say, oh, well, we don't want so-called blacks or black Americans to do this and that. The head secretary of defense from Israel, right, from the puppet state of Israel, came out and said that the number one threat to Israel is the young so-called black Americans. Think about that, bro. Think about that. Think about that. What did we ever do to these niggas? Nothing but exist. But the fact that we still exist, you understand, is a threat for them. Meanwhile, Iran is shooting bombs at them. Hamas is kidnapping them. You know what I'm saying? Cutting up their children, doing all this other type of shit. But yet still, we they problem. This is what I'm saying. This is to show you the awakening that they are so afraid that we get. Case in point, we were talking about we was talking about the eclipse and all of that, right? When we was going in on that, right? Oh, big up to everybody that hit me up about the Vaseline glass. Like, I've been getting calls and stuff from Maurs all over talking about how they finding different aspects of it where they could purchase, like on, some people are finding on Etsy. One more told me he went to a told me he went to a what do you call it? Gift shop, a yard sale or whatever, and somebody was selling mad of it. So I was just letting them know, just make sure if you get it, make sure it's not depression glass, because that's the fake shit that they tried to use to usurp it. You know what I mean? So we want to, yeah, yard sale. So Moore's been out here striving to get it. So again, we're definitely creating an upswell on that information. Case in point, YouTube has been since that video came out, they've been hitting up people trying to get surveys on whether or not they like the video and what they like about it and all this other type of shit. So not only do I have the shadow ban on it, not only do they try to delay the tape, you know what I'm saying? They now trying to get surveys on it to try to see what people is trying to do the knowledge of it for. So we definitely doing something right. One of the things I meant to mention last week about that whole eclipse thing is this. Now, we know that the sun rises, what they say, the sun rises in the east, right? And sets in the west, right? That's what they said, right? Everybody agree with that, right? That's what they be saying, at least, right? Okay, so if that's the case, then how is it then that the eclipse, right, came from the bottom? This eclipse that the ellipse that happened, how is it that it came from the west to go up and then go to the east? Can anybody explain that? Look at the event horizon of the event. This is where they say it came from, but technically, shouldn't it have come like this? Shouldn't it have come down from the east into the west? How is it going up from the west into the east? Can anybody explain that? So this is what I'm trying to say with these people with their lies. Everything that they ever told us about anything in the world is untrue. You understand? The only truth that we can gather is that we can gain from ourselves, from our divine intuition, from objective research, from the mouths of the elders that actually lived there, who may not have been able to properly put in context what they were actually living through. You understand? Everything else is a lie or conjecture. So once we accept that, we can understand that this whole thing is really, again, about us, because everything always seems to invest what we are doing. Why? We're not going over to Africa asking them for anything, are we? Last I heard, Ja Rule is over there, and Ludacris and these niggas is over there trying to build schools for the Africans. That's dope, right? However, what about all of the niggas you was selling crack to when you was running the Cash Money Click in Hollis? How come you ain't build no school there? Why are you going across the world to build a school for other people, right? When you got niggas still suffering from the drugs, right? And the crack in the form of not just crack rock, but the actual music, where you made it appealable for the impressionable youth to follow you into the prison to school to prison pipeline through the hip hop medium that we know was infiltrated by members of the so-called Mossad, by members of the CIA, by members of the so-called Jesuits, which is really all the same shit, to purposely create a criminalization of our youth and our males. And now they're doing the same thing to the so-called melanated or so-called black female, who has now basically made it acceptable to be prostitutes. But then at the same time got their hand out talking about how great it is and how independent they are, while at the same time saying that a man's supposed to pay for everything and every facet of their life. And if not, he's not a real man. Think about the hypocrisy of this. And why does this fly? This flies because they know that if they can control the ego of the female, they can control the family. And they've been doing this since the decline of the family in 1945. When they first started coming into the so-called ghetto neighborhoods, or excuse me, the rich, affluent so-called black neighborhoods that had their own businesses and all of that, and convinced the women to become welfare mothers, with the contingent that they move the males out of the house. So this again is what we're dealing with. We're dealing with the enslavement and mental death and power. Our enemy, remember, evil exists in the high places. The shit that we see out here that we're calling evil, that's just a symptom. You understand? The true evil is dictated from the top down. So again, until they can explain how, if the sun rises from the east, how the other day on April 1st, the sun obviously rose from the west. Well, remember, the farthest east you go, you wind up west, right? Which again falls in line with the ancient Aleph and the Tav, which is what this represents, which again is a symbol for us. For us. Everybody else here is just visiting. We're the only people that can't be deported nowhere. They can't send me nowhere back except to Brooklyn. You know what I'm saying? Where I was born at. So again, you are from here. You are what they refer to as a modern or an indigenous or whatever you talk about, American, for lack of a better word, Amuurukhans, right? Or Al-Marak, right? The original so-called Americans. That's us. Nobody can take that title from us. We always been here, but they always want to make us believe that we came from somewhere else. Why? Why? Because once they do that, they get you to identify with their version of history, which then takes you outside of your own quantum field and puts you into them, puts you into theirs, which again is a deep problem. Okay? All right, so we addressed that. So now we get into this. Also, big up to whoever posted this. Because remember, I told you it was an ellipse. The person who posted this, his name is Scanor Reloaded. I don't know who this is, but I found it on Facebook and it was relevant to what we were talking about in terms of this ellipse, which they call an eclipse. Right? Peep this. This is how you know it was fake. All right. 1 second. Yeah, this is how you know it was fake. Because they already patented. Look, patents for eclipse and solar simulations. So they got a patent for devices and machines that can simulate an eclipse, that can simulate, right, a solar event, when really it's just another trick. It's just another damn lie that these niggas done created to throw us off of what time and where we really are in the original quantum field. Okay? Not to mention, look, this is actually a old, what they would call old septentrional map, right? And in it, what does it say? America as India Nova, as New India. Think about that, right? And the Magna Carta of Grand Mexico, right? As the universal compendium in redacta, meaning that some of it is taken out, right? Again, see, whenever I start teaching, this nigga want to start talking. They do. You know what I'm saying? So again, this is the issue with these people. Like I said, everything they ever told us about anything and everything is a damn lie. So we got to be careful about what we actually assimilate or assume as is true or as true, because most likely it was given to us by somebody working for them. If you want to find the greatest CIA operatives and people like that, all you got to do is look at the all you got to do is look at who's running or what type of what do you call it? What type of technology or whatever is popping. Most likely they have funded it. Or and a lot of times the people won't even know. They won't even know that they're actually working for these intelligence agencies, because these intelligence agencies right now are working to create a color revolution to get all of us to basically assimilate or come out of this fake simulation that they've created. You know what I mean? One of the biggest things they want us to talk about again is the whole Bering Strait, and the fact that, you know, we wasn't here, and the Eskimo Indians and these niggas came from all over, right? So look, we already showed and proved not only was the Yakub thing real, that they've already accepted that it's real. They've already co-signed everything that we read about in the 1 to 20s, the 1 to 20, the 1 to 40, right? The student enrollment, all the stuff Elijah Muhammad, peace be upon him, was talking about. They already conferred all of that. We already agreed to that. But they still gonna go with the Bering Strait thing to make you seem like the Siberian Indians is the people that was originally from here, right? So watch us bust this shit down and destroy that whole argument. Look at this. Look at this. So right here, you see, they got the multi-lake Baikal, right? Which is where 24,000 years old, right? And here we have the European and the Asian gene mix. So all of this is Eurasia. All of this is Eurasia or West Asia, going all the way to Africa, so-called with the continent of Africa, right? Now, this is after the Great Flood. So this is why everything is broken up, okay? And then here we are, the Americas start right here when the gene mix, look, genes mix to form the American group. So what they're saying is that there was nobody here, right? And then what happened was all of these people that were over here decided to cross this thing that they're calling the Bering Strait, right? And then they came over the land bridge, right? And then went to the farthest reaches, and then from there came all the way down here, right? To about 12,600 years ago, when a 3-year-old child found in Montana in 1968, right? So basically saying, so this is all for them to confer that, again, you niggas is not from here, right? You don't have no place here, so you gotta be what we say you are. See, this goes along with the out of Africa theory, right? Watch us bust this whole shit open. Watch. So look, 60,000 years here, right? Then we got 24,000 years. So remember, the Nation of Islam has no birth record. So according to that, it says that we renew our history every 25,000 years, right? Because the actual circumference, that to go along with the circumference of the planet, that's actually 24,896 miles. We round it up to 25,000 and then start over. Everybody got that part, right? Everybody understand that part? Okay? Right. Right? So they're saying all of this happened, and then within that, we scale it back to about 6,000, then to 4,000 years old, right? But how is it that your melanin, your own melanin that you are born with, is older? Is older. Just the gene of the melanin itself is older than anything these Siberian so-called Native Americans is acting like they have over you. How can we explain that? Okay, they can't. So let's go to this. This is where we bust this whole shit out. So you see this, right? So the extent of the ice 13,000 years ago. So basically 13,000 years ago, they was in the ice box. Okay? So what grows in an ice box? What life grows in an ice box? I thought when shit gets frozen, it freezes, which means that it's inert. It cannot produce because it's what? Frozen, right? So that already shaves off the 13,000 years they talk about. Okay. So let's now bring that down to the 24,000 years. All right. We haven't even got to the 60,000 in Africa yet. Okay. So 13, 24, 60. Somebody give me the numbers on that. What that add up to? 13, 24, 60. 97. Okay, so let's say these niggas been here for 97,000 years. Let's give them that. Right? Let's give them that. Okay, 9 and 7 is what? Because you know we don't never settle on two numbers. We bust the number down to one. So that's 16, that's 7. Okay? So how long did they say that they came out the icebox? 6,000 years, right? So let's round that up to that 7. So right there, we done busted down to the 6, but we're going to give them an extra 1,000 years, okay? Now watch this. Now this is from their own scientists. This is their own scientists. I showed this before, but I don't think people really understand the relevance of what this means. So we're going to start it again. Look, so let's say we went from the 97,000 years. We just added all of them things together, right? Let's say we give them that. Now they know damn well there was no Siberian people or what they call Inuit or what they call them type of people existed 97,000 years ago. We know that. They know that. Okay? They know that. Peep this. The photomicrograph shows an X chromosome at the left alongside a shrunken Y chromosome. The Y chromosome is passed down exclusively from the father to the son and can serve as an indicator of a male human line diversity. Okay, this is the real diversity inclusion, right? Scientists say an so-called African American, i.e. a Maurs, male's odd genetic signature suggests that the human Y chromosome lineage goes back further in time than they thought, perhaps due to what? Interbreeding with other populations such as who? Neanderthals. Didn't we go over what the Neanderthals was last week? These are the cave people. These are what big up to brother Trey. He reminded me that in the Bible they call the troglodytes Horites. So these Horite Neanderthals, right? Neander meaning the river, Neander being the river that they was at, and Thal meaning the valley that surrounded them, right? The whites, the W-I-G-H-T whites. Right? So the only way they was able to come out the icebox is somebody had to start the interbreeding with them. Let's, for lack of a better word, let's refer to that as Mr. Yakub, right? This really upsets a lot of ideas, but at the same time, it's understandable if we accept that the human populations were structured in the past so that there were little pockets of what? Diversity, meaning everybody was melanated like us, whether you was in the cold, whether you was in the hot, whatever, you was melanated because we was the diversity. The diversity existed within the genetics of the individuals, and that genetic was heavily influenced by the higher state of etheric energy, the higher state of radiation that we was assimilating, because there wasn't no fossil gases. There wasn't none of this bullshit, climate change shit they talking about today, right? Look, this really upsets a lot of ideas, but at the same time, it's understandable if we accept that human populations were structured in the past so that there were little pockets of diversity, said Michael Hammer, an evolutionary biologist at the University of where? Arizona, who was also one of the authors of a study published in the American Journal of Human Genetics. The study focuses on the analysis of a DNA sample that was obtained from who? An African American living in South Carolina. Interesting. Okay. What does that mean? Well, and submitted to the Genographic Project, a National Geographic, there they go again, National Geographic effort aimed at mapping human origins and migrations. The funny thing about this sample is that it didn't match up with any of the previously known genetic signatures for the Y chromosome, which is passed from who? The father to the son. A team led by Fernando Mendez, like the Mendes goat, a researcher in Hammer's lab, analyzed more than 240,000 DNA base pairs on the African American's Y chromosome and a comparison of the differences between the mystery genetic signature and previously known signatures led to the team to conclude, this is it, they concluded this, which means that it's irrefutable, that the most recent common ancestor for the entire group, that means all of us, that's men that come from fathers, right? That are mated with original human females, i.e. melanated females. The entire group lived about what? 338,000 years ago. That's way longer than the 97,000 we just gave these niggas just to be nice, right? That goes further back than the fossil record. So what they telling you, original man, you older than fossils. You are older than any fossil that they have found. The record speaks to 195,000 years or 200,000 years. He said it also goes further back than the previous date for the most common ancestor based on the Y chromosome analysis, which is in the range of 142,000 years ago. Where did they find this man? Did they find this man in Africa? Did they find the man in Europe? Did they find the man in Asia? No. Where they find this nigga at? Found this nigga in South Carolina. How many of y'all got relatives in South Carolina? You see how they be lying? So if that's the case, then what is all of this shit? What is all of this you showing me then? What is all of it? All of this right here is garbage. None of this is real. None of this shit real. None of it's real. We are older than the Ice Age. When the Ice Age started, 13,000 years ago, we've been here for, so let's round it up. So really, they basically saying about 500,000 years. Really, 385,000, you might as well say 1,000,000 years. We can't even fathom that. We can't even fathom that. So this out of Africa theory, trash. Trash is fake. It's fake. If anything, we gave them the diversity because the shit started here. So it's really reversed. It really is supposed to go this way. This way. Come on, man. We are older than the Ice Age. So what you're saying is we older than the Ice Age. We older than the fake dinosaurs, which is really dragons, because the word dinosaur didn't come into the human lexicon until 1875. So what was they calling these things prior to 1875? Dragons. So we older than the fossils. We older than the dragons. We older than the Ice Age. But you're going to tell me when I existed, when I came into existence? How? You can't even give me an actual time frame and when this actually happened. But what you can do is check the genetics of somebody who is probably just some, for all you know, this is just some nigga off the street in South Carolina. They found and say, hey, you want to come in and do a study? We give you $20. This more was like probably like, word, okay. Came in and destroyed their entire model for the modern and the postmodern world. And it keep going back. It keep going back. So when we read in the 1 to 20 and all of these other indigenous so-called melanated American texts that all of these other niggas are trying to tell us is fake and all this other stuff, the people that look like us, you know, they want to believe everything the white man say. So they want to believe it's fake. Here go the white man saying, no, the Nation of Islam has no birth record. Dan said they took his DNA while he was in prison for child support. What's sad is that you might be right. You might be right. You might be right. You understand? That's how crazy it is. The closest relation to the African people that we'll have in that regard is the people in Cameroon. That's the closest. And where's that at? West Africa, right? Closest to us. The researchers followed up their discovery by searching through the genetic database for African populations and turned up 11 men. They only found 11 men from the whole of Africa. They could only find 11 Africans with the DNA that we done had over here before everybody got here. So that's why nobody could tell us that where we from. We from here. We always been here. That's why all these niggas come here. We don't be going all the way over there to them. We different. Yes, the Gullah Geechee, the Seminoles, right? The Creeks. Yes. Yes. Yes, the Maurs, the barbarous nations, the ones in the east. Hammer said, see, it's hammer time. Hammer said there could be two explanations for the previously undefined Y chromosome type. So what this also means is that you got DNA that they can't even qualify. It's unlike anyone else on the planet. They could only find 11 Africans with it. And again, this is the unbroken lineage between the father and the son. So what did they have to do? They had to break up the father and the son. Who did they get to do it? The female. See, they should have never let niggas read again. Because they sealed their fate with it. And the only reason why you have all of this so-called genetic diversity today, people who look Persian, people who look Arab, people look like that, is because we allowed the interbreeding to take place with their genetic Rh recess positive ancestors who were all Neanderthals. There was no Arabs the way that we see Arabs today 385,000 years ago. There was no Italians. There was no Basques. There was no white Britons. There was no Khazarians. None of these people existed. There was none of this. None of this. No Belgium. None of this shit existed. None of these people existed without us. You understand? That the people who they claimed descent from weren't technically even people. These were, again, Neanderthals who had a genetic deficiency, which is why they're not here no more. That the only way that the people who had the Rh positive aspect in them could exist would be by the grace of our genetics, not the African genetics, but us over here, the lowly blacks, right? The Negro black coloreds. The same ones that's at the bottom of everything, right? The same one they said, oh, you ain't got no culture. Ain't got no culture. Nigga, if it wasn't for me, you'd still be born with tails. And some of you are. Still, to this day. This ain't racism. This ain't hate. This is genetic history. Don't blame me. Blame National Geographics. I didn't write this study. You know what I'm saying? I'm just bringing it to light. The results are more consistent with the introgression of an odd lineage. Look up the word introgression. Somebody look up the word introgression. Look, the results are more consistent with the introgression of an odd lineage. And that's an interesting way to put it. Hammer told NBC News. The news know this. I agree with you, but let's see what the white man say. Because you know these niggas, we can say what it is, but to let the white man say it, these Negroes don't accept it. You know what I'm saying? So somebody look it up and post it in the chat, and I'll read it. Over the past few years, scientists have been coming around. Look, they're coming around to the view that such interbreeding did take place early in the history of our species. See, when they say our species, they talking about the Rh positive niggas. They talking about the Neanderthal ones. They're not talking about us. Our species was here before them. In the recent analysis of who? The Neanderthals and the Denisovians. Okay, introgression. Now, the entry or introduction of a gene from one gene complex into another. As what? As by what? Hybridization. Which is what? Amalgamation. Which is what? Hybrid breeding. Which is what? Grafting. There's a chemical that they got to give original women to when you have a baby with a white man or vice versa, they got to give the white, whoever's the Caucasoid, whoever's the so-called WIGHT person, they got to give them an enzyme to keep your genetics from destroying the seed. Okay, look up, somebody look up Denisovian. Look up Denisovian. What's Denisovian mean? Look, Chinese people believe that they all descend from the Yellow Emperor, who was an alien. That's how they say that the Chinese became so-called yellow, not being racist or disrespectful, but or to call people of color, but that's what they're saying. They believe that they all descended from the Yellow Emperor who came from the sky, and that's what changed the complexion of their people from them looking like us to how they look now. So all of this stuff they talking to us about time and all of it is a damn lie because it's all based on racism. Look, so they say, oh, well, they might say, oh, well, how does that thing? That's not y'all today. Yes, it is. If you came from a black so-called melanated Moor from South Carolina, ain't South Carolina the place where they came with the Sundry Free Moors Act? Isn't that where that's from? Yes, it is. Yes. Look, the DNA has indicated that part of their genetic heritage survives in modern day humans. So that's me and you. Denisovian, look. Denisovians, member of a group of archaic humans who emerged about what? 370,000 years ago during the when? The let me read it right. The Pleistocene epoch in Eurasia, spreading throughout the eastern and southern Asia, parts of Melanesia, before disappearing sometime around when? 30,000 years ago. Let's go back to the map. That's here. That's the ice age. See? See? We older than all these people. We've been here for so long, we don't even remember. We done forgot. See? The group is known from a handful of fossil finger bones, molars, and partial mandibles and other bone fragments found in 7 caves in Russia. See? These is the grafted ones. See? Because remember, we older than the fossil record, so it can't be us. This is just another form. This was the form that came after the Neanderthal. This was the bridge. This was the missing link people that gave birth to the people that today that we know as these hominids. She said one of the biggest debates in the study of human genetics has to do with how to match mutation rates with time scales. See that? How we can't be the mutants because we're the base genetics. Everybody else is mutants. That's why they hate us. You understand? Because we're the ones that technically is the only ones who can survive on this planet. These niggas can't survive without us. That's why I said last week, drop the nuke, man. Do it. Watch what happens. Watch what we become after that. Y'all niggas gonna be out of here. That's just gonna turn us into some whole other shit. Because we're the only ones with the genetic record to be able to transmute it. Do you know from the time that you was born as a melanated male or female from this side of the world that's born here, let's say you had a genetic history where all your peoples is from the same peoples, right? Do you know that from the time you was born to right now that you have assimilated the equivalent of 200 nuclear bombs, the amount of solar radiation your melanin has assimilated from that point to now? Do you know that? Why you think AIDS ain't kill you? Why you think crack ain't kill you? Why you think COVID ain't kill you? Why you think cancer ain't killing you? Look, some might continue to argue that the most recent common ancestor lived more recently than 338,000 years ago. It will still be the oldest Y chromosome heritage that we have. There's nobody older than us on this planet. You don't look like this because some white man came and raped your grandmother, all of that. No, no, no. That's not real. All that's fake. That's cap. That's cap. You cannot pull a dominant from a recessive. You can only pull a recessive from a dominant gene. Period. Period. You understand? There's no getting around that. That's why they want to flip genetics up and say, oh, well, men can have babies and all this other bullshit. This is why they're doing this, to confuse the issue. Because time running out for them. It's over. All of this stuff you're seeing now is going to pass away sooner than you think. Look, scientifically, the so-called black woman is the only organism that possesses the mitochondrial DNA. This is why we are suited for each other. You understand? Because I have something that only she can assimilate in a certain way to produce more of us. The minute I go with somebody else, the minute she go with somebody else, they move closer to the dominant, we move farther away into the recessive. Islam? The so-called black woman is the only organism that possesses the mitochondrial DNA that has all variations possible for every different kind of human being on this earth. African, the albino, the European, the Middle Eastern, which don't exist. When the DNA of a so-called black woman, what? Mutates. Exactly. That's why they want to make it seem like the white man can all of a sudden make all of these dark-skinned babies. No, that's not happening either. Right, because they stripping out her DNA with the thing, but it's acting as an incubator to make it happen. You're right. But it's actually both. We're both right. It's all a lie. This is why it's called the Eve gene, found only in the original woman. This ain't conjecture. This ain't made up. This ain't black supremacy. This ain't white inferiority. This has nothing to do with anything that they're gonna say it is. This is just what it is. Period. This is why they need us to hate each other. This is why they need the so-called original woman to become a prostitute. So that way she can go and they can use her to mutate whatever they want. And because she is susceptible to her ego, and because she believes that she is God, right? She is willing to be put on a pedestal to do that. But it's still now cycle, because there is something called the epigenetic transgenerational inheritance that we naturally have that they don't. They can only produce more of them with each other, but the more they do that, the more they will eventually extinct themselves. So they need us to do so. It's simple. This ain't racism. This is what it is. So look, big up to Key Marco, whoever that is who created this meme. I don't know who this brother is, but it goes along with what we're talking about. Look, genotype, the genetic makeup of a given individual. Phenotype, the traits that are expressed in the individual. Recessive gene, the gene pair that determines a trait in an individual only if the other member of the pair is also recessive. Got it? Dominant gene, one gene of a gene pair that will cause a particular trait to be expressed. So without a dominant gene, you cannot have a recessive gene. And if two dominant genes procreate, there is no recessive gene. Islam? Simple, right? Simple. We don't gotta be biochemists and all of this bullshit to be able to understand this. That's where they got us thinking. This is why they want you to go to school and learn the base pairs and all that. You don't got to do all of that, man. Get you a book, and if you understand the basic understanding of genetic and genome, you're good. All of the extra shit is them trying to put their little sprinkle on it so they can flip it and bounce it to their own agenda. This is why they needed the original man out the home. This is why they need her to believe that she is some sort of unicorn that can just create babies through solar galactic birth. Okay. But your genetics as the female is not older than mine as the male. So how are you the God? How are you creating the baby out of nothing? How are you doing that? When you need my genotype and my phenotype to create the dominant gene to keep you from producing recessive genes. This is why the prophet said, again, all praises due to Noble Drew Ali, who said, I am going to make the European tell the truth. And now that the European telling the truth, the Negroes is lying. That's always the way. Okay. Okay. So we don't already assimilated that. So that means all of the societies that exist over 385,000 years ago, before anybody else was here, was our societies. You understand that, right? We get that, right? We understand that. So there was no white people in Egypt. There was no white people in Samaria. There was no white people in ancient China. There was no white people in ancient Japan. There was no white people in none of that. There was no yellow people, none of that. Unless you was dark skinned, brown skinned, copper colored, olive colored, that was it. You did not exist. That's not hate. That's not racism. Don't get upset at me. Just what National Geographic done dropped the ball on y'all niggas and told you this. This is why you're able to assimilate any type of radiation. Do you know how hot the sun must have been, or the suns must have been 385,000 years ago? You think this sun hot? And we probably had the same two suns that just popped up now, plus the black one was probably there then. There was no moon. That shit just got here. You know how hot it was? And we lived on the surface, in the earth, above the earth. Look, let's go over it again. The half-life of uranium, 238, is 4.5 billion years old. It decays into radium at 226, which then in turn decays into radon 222. Then from radon 222, it becomes polonium. I guess this is why niggas like polo. It becomes polonium 210, which finally decays into a stable nuclide that we call lead. The existence of lead as an element disproves the 4,000-year-old myth, the 6,000-year-old myth. But it gets better. Think about this. If this is the case, right? Remember when the devils was saying that they had to go back and they had to bust down buildings that were painted because the paint back in the days had lead in it? Remember that? And that so-called original people, original children in the poor areas was eating lead paint chips. Remember that? Y'all remember that? Remember the lead paint chips? All of these kids allegedly eating the paint chips with the lead paint, and they had to start to take all of the paint and start taking the lead out the paint. Why did they do that? Because the lead paint stopped the satellites, the fake satellites and all that shit from reading into your crib. But guess what? Try to find an actual case where some child actually died of lead paint, of lead poisoning or something like that. It never happened. It never happened. It was a cat. They did it because they knew they was going to start to create electromagnetic frequencies, and they wanted to be able to go in and look within your crib with x-rays and shit like that to see what you was doing. And the lead paint inhibited that because the lead paint interacted with the natural uranium radiation that you would automatically absorb. So when it tried to look through the x-rays into you, into the building or whatever, they couldn't even see you. You couldn't even be detected. That's why today certain photo machines can't even pick up black faces. Look it up. Queen tried to do it one time. That shit, they couldn't even see her. Tell me I'm lying. Exactly. Certain passport photos, we got to tell them to turn the light up on the photo. Shit can't even pick us up because we naturally absorb the light. Yup. Couldn't even pick me up. And I'm nowhere as melanin rich as the queen. That's why when there's reports in the Chickasaw, in the Indian Wars, the French Indian Wars, where they were saying we're shooting them with guns and they're not dying. Why? Because we were so alkaline, we were so charged up, they couldn't even read. The bullets was lead, so our bodies is just assimilating the lead, turning that, regurgitating, turning that shit back into uranium, back into radium, back into polonium. And you got niggas today buying bleaching cream. You see how sick niggas are? We were so dark at one point, we was like purple. We was blue. The Nilotic people, the Nilos, that's why they don't like certain so-called African nations. The darker ones, those are the ones that's usually the giants, because they descended from the Nilotic peoples, aka the ancient Abyssinians. Ask yourself this: if in the Bible in ancient times it was called Abyssinia, right? Why are you calling it Ethiopia? Why all you Africans, all these African countries got English names and use English letters to describe their country? Can somebody tell me that? But then you're gonna say we colonized. You're gonna say something wrong with us. No, no, no. There's nothing, no, no. I'm tired of people that's born here always telling me how great everybody over there is and how much better and how much more science and how much more magic and all this shit they got. When all of them come over here to get what we got. The terror in the Chickasaw Nation. Band tied up the postmaster with his wife at Stonewall, released by the neighbors. Many Indian citizens maltreated. The Chickasaw government will move them from the reservation. But wait, I thought the Chickasaws was the Indians on the reservation. No, no, no. The slaves was the native Siberians and the imported Neanderthal Denisovian whites, who we was trading amongst each other, who some of us was using as beasts of burden and slaves to build up their nations after a certain point. And the only way that they was going to get free was if the abolitionists had that, because the abolitionists was working to free themselves, not free us. We were the ones who created what? The Freedmen Bureau. So if we was already free, how are we trying to abolish something we wasn't in? Can somebody explain that? No, 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 because they all lying, because they all Freemasons and they lying to keep the secret. Last Saturday, a band headed by who? King Blue. Why was he called King Blue? Because this nigga was so black, he was blue. Right? Swept down on the farm of George Truex, the postmaster at Stonewall. The so-called Indians came to the man's farm at noon when a white man and his squaw, see? A white man and his squaw were led to the house bound with a rope and held as prisoners. You see what I'm saying, Maurs? That's a good idea. Thank you. Exactly, Maurs. Exactly. They all lying. All of these, all of these Siberians at their powwows and on their reservations, they all on stay on stolen land. They all from Asia. They are Chinese. These niggas is not even from here. They fronting too. They only got to be this after the real people, the real nations, was disbanded and redesignated as Negroes, thanks to people like Marcus Garvey and Walter Pleckler. They don't want